are on number 31, solutions. Demonstrate with verbal instruction if someone is unable to kneel on the floor. If they're unable to kneel, we can take a sturdy chair. Hopefully I would put my legs through here, where we can kind of grab the back of the chair. And they can do the chin to chest, and they can still get a good opening and a really good stretch in the back. Just by kind of holding or leaning on the corners of the chair. My chair is a little bit wide. Sometimes all we need to do is have a small bolster. We could basically just kind of roll up a towel and place them underneath the ankles to give the toes a little bit more support. My towel's not quite big enough here, but a bolster of some sort that would keep the pressure off the toes a little bit. I'm starting to have that problem because I've got bunions and I've got one joint that's worn, and some days my big toe just does not want to bend, and it may come a time where I've got to keep some kind of a block underneath my toes as well. There's exercises that can be done to help strengthen our feet, to strengthen our toes. I think I kind of showed this in the other video. Basically just interlacing our fingers between our toes. Number one, it's really great for separating them and moving them around. I have a set of yoga toes. When I first started doing yoga, I couldn't open my toes. They were literally glued together. And I got the yoga toes to separate in between, and I had to start basically just putting it between one toe because I couldn't go to the second one. There was no more room. So things can change. One of the exercises that we can do to strengthen is our toes is by helping to put weight on them. And so if we do this and then we just kind of sit back onto them, we're putting a lot of weight and a lot of pressure curling our toes, which right now is really hurting my bone. And just kind of keep going back and forth helps to strengthen our toes. The solutions for ladies with large breasts when trying to do the kneeling back bend was to use a pillow. And I thought I had done this, and I'm not sure what happened to that video. But for somebody that would be big-breasted, that would be trying to get up against the wall, their breast would be touching, but we would never be able to get this walk up the wall feeling. So by placing a pillow here, the breast would still be here, but we would be filling this gap in here and allowing that walk up the wall feeling that everyone else would be getting. The counter pose for kneeling back bend. Basically is to be up on our knees, to sit down, and we're going to bring our head to the floor. And then place our hands behind us. Let out that breath. Then we're going to breathe in. Filling our abs, expanding our ribs, and breathing into our back. And back out. You can come up. We're to be facing. And I was always looking down. I was actually more dizzy, so I'm really thankful on this one that you pointed that out. And sometimes I close my eyes as well, but that works very well. Demonstrate tabletop learning step 1. In step 1, the only goal is to get a position here and basically slide. We're not really doing any lifting. And this was it. Just getting enough to slide forward. So let me give you the full thing here. Legs would be hip width apart. We're going to find a position close to our hips that we can push with. We've got kind of a hole right here. We're going to want to lift this. Chin is to the chest. And as we lift, which there's no lift, this one's just pulling forward. Chin is to the chest, elbow creases are rotated forward. I forget to say that, but it just makes everything work much better. Hands are close to the thighs, fingers are always pointing forward, knees are unlocked. During the movement, lift the pelvic floor, belly to the spine, breathe in as we slide the bottom towards the heels. Feet flattened, all 10 toes on the floor. Feet straight, not ducked or pigeoned. Check that our abdomens are engaged, breathe out. And these are points that as I'm remaking my notes for the 10-week class, that I am being very clear to put these in into. Number 36, demonstrate tabletop, the full version. Okay. Alright, so we're going to be sitting, hip width apart, chin to the chest. We're going to rotate those creases forward, then we're going to breathe in and up. And check that the abs are engaged, breathe out and down. Common problems and solution for tabletop and starting posture. Legs not being hip width apart, locking the knees, not rotating the elbow creases, the breastbone not being lifted to the chest. Demonstrate with verbal instructions what they are doing wrong if they are moving forward across the floor. That means that they would be pulling with their feet. Basically pulling themselves forward. If they are moving backwards, they are not sliding their bodies all the way back until their legs are straight, so therefore every time they come back, they're not coming all the way back, and then they need to scoot forward for each next move. So they would be walking either back and forth during those movements. Demonstrate with verbal instruction in different ways in which you can ascertain where to place your hands. Basically, when you put your hands down, they need to be closed. But if there's too much strain when you go up on your shoulders, you are too far back. And if there's too much weight on your legs, you have placed your hands too far back. So by moving them back a ½ inch or forward a ½ inch until you find that nice balance is what we need to do. If our arms if our hands don't reach the floor, I'm right there in between. I'm learning and building the strength, so it's helping, but yoga blocks can help, placed on the side. But I'm finding out for me that they're so thick that it makes such a difference that in order to get the right lift, it now is really changing where I need to place this in order to get the lift, because they're kind of thick. But we can use anything that's really solid, books that are not slippery or on a slippery surface, that's stable, blocks of wood that obviously aren't splintery. You know, a block of wood wrapped with that rubberized shelving foam stuff works really good. Again, yoga blocks can work. Folded towels, but they're a little bit soft, kind of throwing the balance off, so I don't recommend that. We can also use a knuckle straight down on the floor. If we have weak wrists, that can be very handy. And to me, I think it gives a little bit of height because we've got this much more height than we do going this way. So we added a few of our own inches, but you would have to use a towel or something underneath your knuckles. You couldn't do that on a hard surface. Wouldn't want to damage our hands. Which props should you not use if you need help? We shouldn't use books, layers of books that can slide apart, or anything that can slide out from underneath us and actually hurt us. Shoes or cushions, they're uneven and too soft. And wooden blocks with splinters. What surfaces should you avoid doing tabletop on? You don't want a surface that's going to be too slippery that makes your props or your hands slide out from underneath you. You also don't want one that's too soft, that's, you know, constantly throwing your balance off. I find dragging my butt on the carpet's very uncomfortable. I have a hard time even doing it on mats. Maybe that's because I'm not able to lift up quite as much as some people, so I'm sliding a little too much. What would you suggest for people whose wrists are very weak or stiff? First, I would let them know that over time it's going to strengthen their wrists, and that's a really good thing. There's solutions. A lot of these solutions are not going to be recommended, number one, for people who are overweight, or that have arthritis. But we could do this with our knuckles, like I had just explained earlier. That takes the pressure off the wrist for a time. What would you suggest to someone who lifts their middle too high, can't lift their middle too high to form the tabletop? Number one, you need to check that their distance, that they're not too close together, because if you're too close together, your feet with the weight of your shoulders, there's just no way to lift up. You kind of need to be picked up in the middle. And then again, if you're too far apart, you can't do it either. So that would need to be checked. Doing the posture is just going to strengthen us over time. So practice. There's strengthening pose in the book called Bridge Pose. That would be beneficial. I'm just kind of highlighting some of the stuff that you wanted me to redo in the video. So number 38, learning step 1, downward dog. I have no idea how this is not demonstrated, but okay. You said I didn't do it at all. Somehow I must have deleted a video, or one of them didn't get looked at. I don't know. Anyway, learning step 1. This is my favorite posture, by the way. So we're going to get in the kneeling here, and then we're going to go forward a few centimeters. We're going to tuck our toes under. And for step 1, we're going to breathe in. We're going to engage this core, pull our belly towards our spine. We're going to breathe in all the way up and out as we come back down. So we're going to, and as we go up, we're going to be looking towards our belly button. Breathe in and just lift up, pushing back onto our heels, pulling that belly towards our spine. Check that our abs are engaged, and we're going to breathe out as we come back down in step one. Learning step two for downward dog. We're going to be in the same position. We're going to come forward, rotate those elbow creases forward, toes curled under, core is engaged, belly buttons towards the spine. We're going to breathe in, up, and out as we come down. Just going to straighten out our legs. And we want to kind of push back, curling our toes under, and come back underneath. But before we come down, we're going to check that our abs are engaged, and obviously breathe out as we come back down. It's really hard to do step one and step two. I love doing the whole move. Solution. Demonstrate with verbal instruction what the solution is if you feel stuck between upward dog and downward dog. That would be that your arms would be too close together. We need to kind of take a step back to give us that room to flow between our arms and come back up. What may be happening if your heels can't touch the floor? The first thing that may be happening is you are bone to bone. And if that's the case, it's never going to change. It's not anything you can ever work out. Your heels will never go down, and that would be that. In that case, you would kind of put some kind of bolster, towel, lock underneath your heels and allow yourself to still get the best stretch that your body's going to get, which is just as good as anybody else's whose heel is going to the floor. The other thing, you wouldn't be pushing back enough to get your heels to the floor. This can be very tight. The muscles and tendons in here can be very restricted, and it'll take stretch and time to get those to release. What would you suggest if someone finds the stretch too strenuous on the back of their legs in downward dog? Number one, don't overstretch anything. We're not here to hurt anyone. They can allow their knees to bend just a little tiny bit. That'll take away some of the stretch. And over time, as we do the move, it will pull and relax these muscles where they'll actually be able to go stretch further, and it will take away that tension. What would I suggest if someone has a rounded back and downward dog? This is typical with beginners and will improve over time. The biggest thing is to try to lift that tailbone more towards the ceiling behind them. That's going to elongate that spine. Looking towards the belly button also helps take out some of that round. And drawing the shoulder blades down and back will help take out that roundness. What are the problems with this solution? The solution for if someone's strength needs to be worked on, we can put a bolster underneath their thighs so that they're not collapsing down on the mat. But when they come down onto those bolsters, near those bolsters, they need to realize it, and they need to hold some strength off of that, because if they just collapse down onto it, it's not going to do them any good. But as people are learning how far is off the floor and to get that nice move, sometimes it's nice to put something in there. They just have to be aware not to put too much weight on it. But at the same time, they can be lightly brushing it. They need to be using their core muscles. They need to be tightening those buttocks and really working those muscles. Remember to breathe in during that movement. And like demonstrate with verbal instruction what you would suggest to someone who is on their tiptoes during downward dog and upward dog. Their weight is too far forward. If somebody is up on their tiptoes, they are pushed too far forward and they need to come back. They need to be pushing back. There's no reason in either move to be forward. We need to be back. That may mean moving the hands one way or the other to get them toes to curl the right way. Shifting the weight back over the legs, pressing the heels backwards. Demonstrate with verbal instruction what you would suggest to someone who is very stiff or weak to do pendulum. Sometimes just to add some height, when somebody is trying to do an exercise like this, can make it easier for them. It can change the position, making it easier to do. If they're really having a hard time bending, having a chair or something, a counter, again, the move could be done, more this way and back. You're going to find that sweet spot. This could be done with a chair. The blocks work great if the stiffness is kind of mild. Someone recovering from a minor accident, that may be very, very beneficial. Demonstrate with verbal instruction what physical modifications or solutions you can offer. Place your hands and fingers over the edge of yoga blocks. Give more of a grip. Adding height to your arms using that thick towel rolled up. And I kind of did show you that already. This time we could go this way. That's it.